good day everyone. I am Shaina Jen Ambento, one of your presenter for today. So our topic is lesson 13, which is global migration. But before I explain to you what is global migration, let me first read to you our objectives for this report. So by the end of this video, the student may acquire the following objectives. Number 1, identify and explain the major drivers of global migration, including economic, political, sociocultural, climate, and conflict-related factors using examples from real-world cases. Number 2, analyze the impacts of migration on sending countries, receiving countries, and migrants themselves, focusing on economic, political, and sociocultural consequences. And lastly, number 3, evaluate the global trends and future challenges in migration, emphasizing how climate change, war, and international policies shape modern displacement and global mobility. So what is global migration? Global migration is the movement of people across national borders, either permanently or semi-permanently, for a variety of reasons like economic opportunities, family reunification, education, or to escape conflict, persecution, or environmental disaster. In conclusion, global migration happens when people move from one country to another to build a better life. They may look for good jobs, pursue education, reunite with their families, or leave places affected by conflict or disaster. It's a reminder that people move because they hope for safety, opportunity, and a more secure future.
Good day everyone, my name is John Mark L. Bitonio and my topic is all about the global migration trends. So what is the global migration? Migration is the movement of people from one place to another to live or work. People migrate for jobs, education, safety, or family. So reasons for migration is economic, social, political, environmental. For the economic is to find a better job opportunities, and social, joining family or improving life. Political, escaping war or persecution. And environmental is the natural disaster or a climate change. So, major destination countries: United States, largest numbers of migrants. Germany, Saudi Arabia, Russia, United Kingdom also host millions. Urban centers attract skilled workers and students. So what is the effect of migrations? So we have the positive impacts and the negative impacts. First is the negative impacts. It boosts the labor force and economic growth, promotes cultural exchange, and the negative impacts is brain drain, loss or skills works, overcrowding, and social tension. The future of global migration. Migration will grow due to globalization and climate pressures. Focus on safe, orderly, and legal migration. Global cooperation is essential. In conclusion, migration is part of human history, brings both opportunities and challenges. Understanding migration promotes peace and development. And that will be all my topic. Thank you for listening.
So, hello everyone. My name is Angeline H. De La Cruz and I will be discussing to you the economic dimension of migrants. The economic dimension of migration covers the financial drivers of population movement and the resulting economic impacts on all parties involved, migrants and their origin and destination countries. So, why people move? People usually move because they want more money and better jobs. They leave the countries where wages are low or there are no jobs and go to the countries where pay is high and there are jobs available. So, there are two key economic drivers. The first one is So there are two types of economic drivers. So the first one is the wage disparities, which means the primary motivation is the significant difference in wages and income between countries, creating a strong incentive to move from low wage to high economy. So the second is the employment. So it means that migration is driven by a lack of jobs in the origin country and the demand for labor or specific skills or shortage in the destination country. So there are two impact on countries. So the first one is sending countries where people live. So the positive impact is the migrant sends money back, which helps families in the country's economy. So the negative impact is the country can lose its best workers like doctors and engineers. So the second impact on countries is the receiving destination countries. So the positive impact of this is when migrants do needed jobs and help the economy grow. They also pay taxes. So the negative impact of receiving countries is they might also cause a little competition for the lowest paying jobs, which could make wages low for some local workers. So the second is the impact on migrants or migrants themselves. So the positive impact is they get much higher income, which greatly improves their life and the lives of their families back home. So the negative impact is because of migration, high initial travel, visa, and settlement expenses.
So good day, ma'am. I am Ruby May Elvizan and I'm here to tackle the topic about political dimension. So let me first read the slide in the PPT. So political factors underlying global migration is about looking at how political decisions, power structures, and international relations shape why, how, and where people move across borders. So the statement emphasizes that politics plays a central role in shaping migration patterns. So one of the factors that drive people to migrate is the political instability and conflict. So political instability and conflict is one of the most direct political drivers of migration. So, for example, the war, the political persecution, or the internal conflicts. So, for example, a government is failed to provide safety on a certain population or people. So, the people or the population is forced to flee to the other country that causes migration. So for example is the civil war in Syria, the decades of conflict in Afghanistan, and the ethnic cleansing of Sudan or Myanmar. Second one is the government policies and migration control. So national government directly shape migration through laws, visas, border control, and citizenship policies. So migration is much as a political issue as an economic one. So the example of this is the EU's Schengen zone, or it allows free movement around Europe, and the US immigration policy that fluctuates with an administration priorities. So the third one is the colonial legacies and post-colonial ties. So historical political relationships between colonizers and colonies continue to shape migration routes. So the example of this is the migration from India, Pakistan, or Nigeria to the UK. The Francophone Africa to France, and the Latin America to Spain or Portugal. So the fourth one is the human rights and international agreements. So global migration is governed by international political frameworks, treaties, convention, and organizations. So one of the example of this is the 1951 Refugee Convention. So it defines the right to seek asylum. So the second example is the Global Compact for Migration in 2018. So it aims to make migration safer and more orderly. And the third example is the role of UNHCR, IOM, and regional agreements like the EU's Dublin regulation. So the fifth one is the geopolitics and strategic interest. So migration policy is often used as a tool in border geopolitical strategies or bargaining. So they use this as a bargaining method. So one of the example of this is the Turkey-EU deal in 2016. So Turkey limits refugees flows in exchange for EU financial aid. One of the example also is the US-Mexico cooperation that controls as part of trade and security negotiations. So the sixth one is the political narratives and populism. Domestic politics, particularly the populism and nationalisms, strongly influence migration discourse. So politicians exploit migration fears or pride to gain support. For example, the anti-immigration rhetoric in Brexit or take back control. The another example is the right-wing parties in Europe and the US using migration as a rallying issue. So the seventh one is the state capacity and governance. So it is weak governance, corruption, and lack of institutional capacity also push migration. So people leave when the political system cannot deliver security, justice, or opportunities. So for example is the political corruption and failed governance in Venezuela and Haiti. Another example is the migration from fragile or failed states due to lack of functioning political order. So the last one is the regional integration and political alliance. So political unions and regional blocs can encourage or regulate mobility. So for example, the EU free movement, ECOWAS or West Africa, or the Mercosur or South America. So another example is the political crises can lead to negotiations of such arrangements. So in conclusion, migration isn't just a personal choice or economic need. It's deeply embedded in political context that create pressures, pathways, and destinations.
Hello everyone, I'm Rufi Julian M. Dokinado, and today we're going to break down a very important and complex topic: the social-cultural aspects of global migration. This isn't just about economics or border control. It's about people, culture, and how societies change when they meet. Understanding the core concept, social-cultural aspects of global migration refers to the impact of moving people on the cultural norms, values, social structures, and identities of both sending and receiving societies. Think of it like this. When people move across the borders, they don't just bring their suitcases. They bring their culture, their language, their food, their beliefs, and their family structure. This movement causes ripples in both society they leave and the society they join. There are four key areas of change. First, we have cultural norms and values. This is how people behave and what they deem important. Second, we have social structures, how society is organized. Example, family, class, and political power. Third, we have identities, how individuals and groups see themselves. Fourth and last, we have cultural exchange, the dynamic two-way street of sharing and adapting. Cultural exchange. This is the positive side, the mixing of cultures. Think of all the amazing, diverse food, music, and arts that exist in global cities. It's the host receiving new cultural codes, values, norms, and communication styles.
Good day, everyone. I am Princess T. Constantino, and I will be discussing my part for the report, which is climate change as force of displacement. So, for the previous reporter, she shared that global migration explained mainly terms of economic opportunity, refuges, and social integration. However, it's also necessary to explain climate change and war as major modern forces of displacement because they are increasingly shaping why and how people across borders. So these are the two factors that need to be discussed in the context of global migration. So let's start for the climate change. Climate change is one of the leading drivers of human migration. It creates what um, experts call climate change. So if we say climate change, these are the environmental migrants that also known as the um, individual or the people who first forced to leave their homes due to environmental changes or disasters. Like for example, now in this year, many of or other places or other countries is facing or struggling climate change due to disaster or dangerous. They force many people rather or um, many people forced to move far away from their homes due to um, dangerous. Like for example, droughts, rising sea levels that um, causes or that's why they forced to leave their homes. So let's move forward for the war and conflict as force of displacement. So war is one of the oldest and most visible causes of migration. Armed conflict forces people to flee for safety, often becoming refugees or asylum seekers. If we say asylum seekers, these are a person who has fled their home country due to fear of persecution. So this person might be seek other countries for helping to um, to keep themselves in safety. For the war, violence, and seeking protection and safety in another country. So what I've said earlier, seeking help to other country to make them safety. They apply for asylum and await a decision on their claim, hoping to be recognized as a refuge and granted refuge status of other forms of protection. So these are the question why they must be included in a lesson on migration, including climate change and war helps students. It helps to understand that migration is not only an economic choice but often a survival strategy. This would help us to be in a safety, to be aware rather. Recognize how global inequalities and political instability shape population movements. And lastly, it appreciates the needs of international cooperation and humanitarian policies to address forced displacements. So that would be all my part. That's all. Thank you.